Have you ever opened your bank statement and felt that little flutter of panic even though you're not spending wildly? You sit there staring at the numbers, thinking, where's it all going? You're not taking cruises every month. You're not splurging on fancy gadgets. And yet, your savings seem to melt away faster than you expected. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Retirement isn't what it used to be. For a lot of people, it's not the quiet golden years they imagined, but a juggling act, trying to stretch every dollar while prices keep rising and the future feels more uncertain than ever. That's why today's conversation is so important. Because the truth is, a lot of smart, hardworking people end up struggling in retirement, not because they were irresponsible, but because they fell into subtle financial traps. Things that seemed harmless, even helpful, but quietly chipped away at their stability. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 of those traps, so you can spot them, avoid them, and protect your future. I want you to feel empowered, not overwhelmed. So let's ease into it, one step at a time. Let's start with something that catches a lot of folks off guard: helping adult children financially, more than you can afford. Now let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with helping your kids. We all want to see our children succeed, feel supported, and know they can come to us in hard times. But there's a fine line between being generous and sacrificing your own security. You might think, it's just a few hundred to help with their rent, or they'll pay me back when things settle down. And sometimes they do. But more often, the pattern continues. Because once financial help becomes part of the routine, it's hard to stop, especially if your child has come to rely on it. And here's what no one tells you. Your retirement savings are not just for emergencies. They're your freedom, your dignity, your ability to say, I'm okay, even if things get tough. When you give out chunks of that safety net, even with love in your heart, you might be setting yourself up for silent stress down the line. I've heard from so many people who reached their mid-70s, looked at their bank balance, and realized they couldn't keep helping. And by then, they didn't know how to say no. It can fracture families, cause guilt, and leave you feeling cornered in your own financial life. So, here's what I suggest. If you want to help, set clear limits. Create a giving budget, just like you would for groceries or gas. Decide what you can afford to give without sacrificing your own needs, and stick to it. And if you can't give money, offer your time, your wisdom, your presence. Those things matter just as much. Now let's talk about the second trap, and this one often flies under the radar: underestimating healthcare costs. You might have Medicare. You might even have a supplemental plan. But copays, out-of-network charges, prescription changes, dental work, and long-term care? Those can add up faster than you think. One moment you're feeling fine, the next you're facing a $4,000 bill for something your plan didn't fully cover. And if you haven't set aside a healthcare cushion, those unexpected expenses can start draining your emergency savings fast. And what happens then? You start pulling from your retirement accounts more than you planned. You dip into the money meant for later. And suddenly, your timeline changes. You're spending like someone who has more years than money instead of the other way around. But here's the good news. You can prepare. You don't have to know exactly what will happen, but you can build a small buffer. Even $50 a month into a separate savings account labeled Health can build up over time. Consider reviewing your coverage annually. Plans change, and what worked last year might not serve you now. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You have every right to understand what's covered, what's not, and what your options are. It's not about fear, it's about foresight. And that brings me to something that might surprise you: hanging onto your home when it no longer makes sense financially. Now, this one can be emotional. Your home isn't just a building, it's full of memories. Your children's growth charts marked on the kitchen wall, anniversaries celebrated in the dining room, quiet mornings in your favorite chair. But here's the thing: Your house might be eating away at your retirement, quietly, month by month. High property taxes, maintenance, repairs, insurance, heating, cooling, it adds up. And if the house is bigger than what you need, or if it's starting to feel more like a burden than a blessing, it might be time to consider other options. I've met people who've made the switch to smaller homes, condos, or even retirement communities. And you know what they often say? I didn't realize how much I was carrying until I put it down. Downsizing isn't about giving up. It's about right-sizing your life, freeing up cash flow, simplifying your day-to-day, and giving yourself the gift of less worry. It's okay to let go of what no longer serves you. It's not easy, but it can be empowering. And if you're not ready to sell, consider ways to make your home work for you. Maybe renting a room, exploring tax reduction programs for seniors, or applying for home improvement grants. You have more options than you think, and you deserve to live in a space that gives you energy, not takes it away. Now that we've talked about supporting adult children, preparing for healthcare costs, and reassessing your home, take a breath. Let it settle. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're learning. And that in itself is powerful. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's keep this conversation going. Because the more you understand, the more control you take back. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest traps, keeping too much money in low-interest accounts for the sake of safety. Now, don't get me wrong, having an emergency fund is essential. Everyone needs a cushion, especially in retirement, when you can't just go out and pick up a side job to fix a surprise expense. But here's the problem. Keeping too much of your savings in accounts that barely earn interest is a slow drain on your financial power. Think about it. Your money sits in a traditional savings account earning maybe 0.5% interest. Meanwhile, inflation is rising 3, 4, sometimes even 5% a year. So what happens? That $10,000 you're so carefully protecting? It's quietly losing value over time. It feels safe, but in reality, it's shrinking. You don't see it like you would a big bill, but the effect is the same. A little less buying power, a little more tightening of the belt. So what can you do? This isn't about gambling or risky investments. It's about being smart with your money. Maybe you talk to a trusted advisor about a high-yield savings account. Maybe you explore low-risk bonds, CDs, or conservative index funds that can at least keep pace with inflation. Maybe you look at splitting your money, some easily accessible for emergencies, some set aside to quietly grow. It's about balance, protecting your future without letting it fade. Because safety isn't just about keeping what you have. It's about making sure it still means something 5 or 10 years from now. Now let's shift gears to a trap that's emotional more than financial, but still deeply impactful. Refusing to ask for help or delaying financial planning out of pride or discomfort. I've met so many good, proud people who say things like, "I'll figure it out," or "I don't want to be a burden," or "I made it this far. I'll keep going on my own." And while I completely understand the dignity in wanting to stay independent, here's the truth. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You wouldn't wait until your car breaks down completely to check the engine, right? You wouldn't ignore a leak in the roof just because you didn't want to call a contractor. Your finances are no different. If something feels off, if you're not sure how long your money will last, or if you just have a few questions about your budget, please talk to someone. A financial advisor, a trusted family member, even a senior resource center. There are people who want to help, who can look at your situation without judgment and help you make a plan. Sometimes the hardest part is just starting the conversation. But once you do, you often realize you're not as far off track as you feared. Maybe all you need is a little guidance to stretch your savings farther. Maybe it's adjusting a few habits. Maybe it's finding benefits you didn't even know you qualified for. There's a reason flight attendants tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. You can't help anyone else, especially your loved ones, if you're gasping for air. So let's take a breath and let go of the idea that we have to do this alone. We don't. And here's something I want to emphasize, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Sometimes the most powerful change starts with one question, one small shift. Maybe it's asking your bank if there's a better account option. Maybe it's looking through your monthly statements and canceling a subscription you forgot about. Maybe it's writing down every expense for a week just to get clarity. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to begin. Because the real trap? Believing that it's too late to change. It's never too late. You've already made it this far. You've navigated family, work, health, loss, love, and decades of change. That tells me you're resilient, resourceful, and capable of making strong decisions now, especially when you've got the right information. Let's remind ourselves of something important here. Financial freedom in retirement doesn't mean being rich. It means having enough to live with dignity, with options, and without fear. You don't need to have millions. You need a plan. You need awareness. You need clarity. And above all, you need to trust that your instincts, those same instincts that got you through life, can still guide you through this season too. It's okay to adjust. It's okay to rethink. What worked in your 40s might not serve you in your 70s. What seemed like a good deal back then might need revisiting now. That's not failure. That's wisdom. Let's carry that forward together. You deserve a retirement that feels steady. That feels yours. And that lets you focus on what truly matters. Your health, your joy, your relationships, not bills and fine print and quiet worry. You've done the hard part. You've arrived. Now it's time to protect what you've built. Let's keep going. Let's finish strong with the final trap, a quiet one that hides in plain sight. It's the assumption that retirement is the end of financial planning. You retire, you throw the party, you get the card with the gold lettering that says congratulations, and you exhale. Finally, no more money meetings. No more worrying about raises or retirement accounts. Except, life keeps happening. And so does your budget. Retirement is not a finish line. It's a new beginning, and it still requires a roadmap. Many folks make the mistake of thinking once they hit 65 or 70, the plan is done. But your spending patterns can shift significantly in this season. Maybe it's increased medical costs. Maybe you travel more early on, then slow down later. Maybe you start helping grandchildren with school, or find yourself taking care of a spouse. That's why ongoing review is so important. Just like you wouldn't go on a cross-country road trip without checking your GPS once in a while, retirement works the same way. You need check-ins. Maybe once a year, you sit down and review. What's changed? What surprised me this year? Is there something I didn't expect, either good or bad, that I need to adjust for? This doesn't need to be complicated. Even just reviewing your income and expenses with a trusted friend or advisor, looking at your healthcare coverage, and updating your will or beneficiary information can make a huge difference in how confident and in control you feel. It's not about control in a strict sense. It's about knowing where you stand so you can move forward with intention. And here's where I want to leave you today. Not with fear, but with clarity. Retirement should feel like freedom. Not the kind where you pretend everything is fine while quietly worrying about what's next. But real freedom. The kind where you know what you have, you know where it's going, and you know what you want from the years ahead. You don't have to fall into these traps. You don't have to overextend yourself trying to help your adult kids. You don't have to stay in a house that's weighing you down. You don't have to leave money sitting still while inflation eats it. And you definitely don't have to pretend everything's fine when you're feeling uncertain inside. This stage of life is a gift. It's not always easy, but it's rich with possibility. And the better you care for yourself, financially, emotionally, practically, the more you have to give, share, and experience. And if you've made some of these mistakes already, that's okay. You're human. You've done your best. And now you know more. And when you know more, you do better. Maybe that means making a phone call tomorrow to talk to your bank. Maybe it means finally saying no when someone asks for money you don't really have to spare. Maybe it means talking to your partner and reviewing the budget together. Or maybe it just means sitting quietly for a few minutes today, thinking about where you are and what you want the rest of your retirement to feel like. You don't need to overhaul your life in a week. Small changes, one step at a time, can give you back so much peace. You're not too late. You're right on time. And there is still so much ahead of you to enjoy, without fear, without confusion, without financial stress hanging over your head like a cloud. Let's keep that cloud away, together. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this helped shine some light on things you might not have considered before. If it did, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you? What changes are you thinking of making? Share in the comments below. I read everyone. And if this video gave you even one useful idea, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button. We've got more helpful tips coming, and I want you to feel supported every step of the way. Here's to strength, clarity, and financial peace. Here's to living your best life at any age. Take good care of yourself. You're worth it.